Next on KQED Newsroom, a look back at 2013 and what to expect in the coming year. Plus, an alternative view on some of the year's stories from the community group Silicon Valley Debug.
We want a participatory and inclusive Silicon Valley, and that for us means getting more people at the table in order to have a richer discussion of what our collective future should be.
Good evening and welcome to KQED Newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. Tonight we'll reflect on the past year and look forward to what may lie ahead in 2014. Joining me for the discussion are Carla Marinucci, San Francisco Chronicle senior political writer, Paul Rogers, San Jose Mercury News environment writer and managing editor for KQED Science, and Joshua Johnson, KQED morning newscaster. First, though, a quick review of some highlights of 2013. 2013, the year of the California comeback, and Governor Jerry Brown rising. He visited China in April to establish a trade relationship and ended the year with a big budget surplus for the state. A stalemate in Congress led to the sequester and a federal government shutdown for more than 2 weeks, shuttering attractions and furloughing workers. It was a bumpy launch for the Affordable Care Act, while the covered California rollout went more smoothly. The push for comprehensive immigration reform stalled. President Obama's approval ratings took a big hit, even in solidly blue California. Same-sex marriage advocates celebrated rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court. Edward Snowden's leak about surveillance by the NSA raised eyebrows.
Privacy is what allows us to determine who we are and who we want to be.
And questions about the role of Silicon Valley companies. Social media darling Twitter had its IPO. The latest tech boom in the Bay Area helped fuel job gains and higher housing prices, leaving many priced out. There was the long-awaited opening of the new eastern span of the Bay Bridge, after months of threatened delays due to faulty bolts.
No contract, no peace.
2 BART strikes drove the Bay Area commute into chaos. It was a year plagued by gun violence in our communities and efforts to stem it. The Asiana airline crash at SFO left 3 people dead and almost 200 injured. More than 400 square miles near Yosemite National Park were scorched by the rim fire, which raged for nearly 10 weeks.
The comeback of 2013 is complete.
There was the surprise victory by Team Oracle in the much-heralded America's Cup race. Candlestick Park concluded its 53-year legacy, and 2013 ended as one of the driest years on record in California. So there you go, quite a year in California, a comeback year, so we said at the top, for California's economy, Carla, and also for Governor Jerry Brown.
I mean, look, at 75, these are supposed to be the golden years. How does Jerry Brown become the golden boy of American politics? I mean, they're talking about the guy running for president again. He's not going to do. He's not going to do that. But when you're presiding over a state that was awash in red ink, billions of dollars, and now you're looking at $2 billion surplus next year. Unemployment is down, months and months of a consistent economic growth. Jerry Brown has a lot to be happy about. His fight is not over. However, as we know, am I right? You got the Democrats and the Republicans up there looking at that surplus.
What are you going to do with it? Spend it or save it?
That's right.
And I think it's interesting to look at how far we've come, right? I mean, only 3 years ago when Brown took office, we had a $26 billion deficit, the largest deficit in the history of California. People were comparing California to Greece. It was being put on again, as it is every 15 or so years. National magazine covers as the failed Golden State. And we literally went from -26 to +2. The surplus is projected to go to +5 billion. You know, Brown was able to do this through luck and skill in some ways. First, through luck, the economy got better on his watch. Capital gains taxes went way up. The state got more money. But he also was able to very successfully push through a tax increase, which he did, raise taxes on rich people, raise the sales tax. That brought a lot more money in. And he kept liberal Democrats in Sacramento in check and didn't let them spend the way that they wanted to spend. So, and also the Republicans have been so completely neutered as a party, they have no ability to block anything in Sacramento. So Brown is riding a nice wave right now, and he's ahead 40 points in the polls for re-election in November.
And he's often referred to as the only adult in the room. And I mean, if you think about it, it's quite a turnaround. If you think back to the 1970s when he was governor, he was only in his 30s back then. He was often referred to as the moonbeam governor. Remember that, for all his new age ideas? And now he's celebrated in all the national publications.
That's right. And I think, you know, it shows his style up there in Sacramento. He hasn't been predictable on a lot of issues, gun issues, for instance. He's gone right down the center. He has done the paddle to the right, paddle to the left, and very successfully. And of course, he's got the help of a Democratic legislature, the supermajority. That's helping him as well. And as you said, the Republicans are nowhere to be seen. The fact is, some Republicans are out there already ready to run against him. Abel Maldonado, the former lieutenant governor, looks like Neil Kashkari, a former Treasury official, may make a run. And you've got a very conservative Tim Donnelly. Are any of these guys going to be able to take a whack at Jerry Brown's strength? It doesn't look like it. But at this point, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to watch Brown in his final year. And when is he going to make an announcement? That's going to be interesting, too. We still don't know. He hasn't announced if he's going to run.
No, I think part of what also remains to be seen is how much of what Governor Brown has done people will actually fully understand and comprehend. I mean, there was a survey recently about the new funding formula for public education and how little the public really understood about how the formula has changed, what the new formula is, what does this mean for my schools. So no question, there's been a lot of progress from minus 26 to +2. When the rubber hits the road and it's time for people to say, yes, I'm going to re-elect Governor Brown because, or no, I'm going to vote for his opponent because, I'm still not sure how much people really get it on a voter level. There's
no chance he loses re-election if he runs. The only thing that will stop him is health issues. California is one of the bluest states in the country now because the Republican Party has not kept up with the demographic shift in the state. And Latinos don't vote Republican, Asians don't vote Republican. They have offered nothing to bring those groups back in, and those are the fastest growing groups. So right now, the Republican voter registration in California is 30%. Democrats are 45%. They start with a 15-point head start. I mean, there's literally no way that you can lose as a Democrat unless you absolutely royally screw it up and bring over a whole bunch of people you know, to the other side who are not going to normally vote that way.
There are some issues, though. I mean, high-speed rail, some of the big infrastructure issues. That's where the Republicans are going to
Delta plan.
But that's not enough to tank him. But many of his big projects are in big trouble. The high-speed rail thing is on life support because a judge took away most of the money. His big $25 billion Delta Tunnels water plan, the best thing he can hope for is a drought next year because that'll get people to care more about water. But environmentalists hate it. They're going to put it on the ballot. He doesn't have any money for that. Prisons are still a mess. I mean, it's not like he's got an easy year coming up next year. He's got a tough time. But there's no issue there when you say, we made California run again. We make it effective. We went from a governor, Schwarzenegger, who was all flash and couldn't actually work the levers of government, to a guy who's no flash, but probably knows more about the levers of government than any of the 38 million other people in the state.
Well, he's no flash, but he's entertaining nonetheless.
Right.
Well, you know, things are sunnier for Governor Brown, not so sunny for President Obama. He's facing a lot of fallout from the NSA scandal, from the Affordable Care Act.
No, absolutely. I mean, his numbers are at a historic low. Look, the Affordable Care Act rollout was better in California than it was almost anywhere else in the country. The numbers are good here, but the fact is, I mean, he's taking question after question about how did it come to this? Immigration reform is another area where he was in San Francisco and got heckled in his last trip here not too long ago. I mean, this has been a very tough year for Obama, even in California, where he's lost double-digit support among his base: women, Latinos, African Americans, and young voters. And that's not a good sign for the Democratic Party going into 2014.
I'm kind of intrigued by this last year, and Carla, you'd probably be wiser on this than I, but the fact that this year has kind of forced Silicon Valley to become a political factor in ways that it has never been. I mean, granted, Silicon Valley was beginning to donate to both sides in the midterms.
Yes.
And even kind of around the time when President Obama was elected in his first term. But now, with this whole NSA spy scandal, everyday Americans are being asked, what is Silicon Valley doing with this information? Is the NSA involved? And I know they're asking to release the data, but what's really happening to my data? So I wonder if now, going forward, finally, Silicon Valley has to be a political player.
You know, we saw this year, Joshua, absolutely that. Just recently, all of those tech leaders sat down with President Obama in the White House, most of them from Silicon Valley. They wanted to talk about the NSA. Immigration, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook has taken a real role with his forward.us. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
The tech leaders were in the White House to complain about NSA. I mean, they don't want the NSA vacuuming up information from them without telling them. It's hurting their reputations. It's hurting their business. I mean, the thing about Obama that's so fascinating to me on what's happened is, you know, the same thing has happened to him with the failed rollout of the website nationally, although it is working now because Silicon Valley people went and fixed it. But, you know, it's the same as Hurricane Katrina with Bush. Bush's numbers were pretty high, and even people that didn't like him had to acknowledge that he was relatively popular because people liked him as a person. A lot of Americans did. And what happened with Katrina was the ability to look competent completely cratered. That one photograph of him looking out the airplane window as an American city went underwater, he looked helpless, and his numbers never recovered from that. And the question, I think, is this website going to recover and the program going to recover in a way that Obama can never recover, or is he going to lose the Senate in November coming up? Are the House Republicans going to maintain their majority, as they probably will, and he will be able to do almost nothing, certainly through laws, you know, for the rest of his presidency?
But at least President Obama didn't say, Sebelius, you're doing a heck of a job. I mean, he admitted that there were problems. He brought in HP and Oracle and said, we completely messed this up. You have to help us not only fix healthcare.gov, but the whole government system for procurement, for IT is all messed up. You have to help us.
You know, but I think with Silicon Valley's role in healthcare, you're right, absolutely important. But there's another aspect of Silicon Valley that presents problems for Obama, and that is we're seeing this increasing divide. Income, the haves and the have-nots, and we're seeing it in San Francisco, where, you know, Google buses are getting protested now on a regular basis, where people are starting to look at the number of evictions of poor and low-income people so that the tech folks can move in, and this issue is creating a backlash, I think.
It really
I'm wondering
is.
If it's,
really is.
Backlash for Silicon Valley.
Well, and we saw it with 8 Washington. That project got voted down by the voters, the embarcadero development on the waterfront. We have the Warriors Arena now, much controversy about that, whether that should be built on the waterfront. And there is this culture clash going on now where people are saying, yeah, the tech sector came in and created jobs, that's great, but we don't see tech workers contributing to our communities. We don't see them volunteering in schools. We don't see them volunteering in our local organizations.
Perfect example was the recent story about the AngelHack CEO who went on Facebook and really dissed the homeless, saying they had not one iota of value. That created a huge backlash on social media, and it just showed exactly what you said.
The question is, though, there's no question that they are making some people in San Francisco mad. Right. I mean, this year the economy has improved dramatically. The stock market right now is at all-time highs. It's been up 25% this year. Housing prices are back up. For people who have assets, people who have 401ks, people who own homes, they are doing remarkably well, the best they've done in about 10 years. For the people who don't, they're falling further and further behind. And I think the question is the people who are in the latter group, who are mad at these tech folks for their stock market millions, what politically can they do? I mean, are they going to get the Board of Supervisors to say we're not giving tax breaks anymore to these kind of companies to come here? Are they going to pass a ballot measure in San Francisco saying you can't evict people anymore? I don't actually see a pathway. I'm probably missing it, but how they actually turn that anger into a concrete way to get back or change anything.
Politically, I don't think there really is a political pathway right now. I mean, let's remember, there are a number of major tech development projects that are on the way, and not the least of which is Apple's iSpaceship in Cupertino that Steve Jobs addressed the Cupertino City Council for. Samsung is planning to build here. Google is working on this massive new Mountain View campus this massive new campus, probably in Mountain View, although it's Google. They can kind of go where they want.
Not to mention the Google barge.
Exactly, the Google barge. But the attacks on the buses, the shuttle buses that carry Google employees, is one of the few places, really, where people can lay their hands on this giant multinational company and say, you are hurting me. So unless there is some way for people to take that out of the streets, unless we have an Occupy Oakland in San Francisco, there's no reason that couldn't happen, and put some political power behind that, I think that's going to get very ugly in the next year. And the fact that people are so disenfranchised, I mean, you know the Golden Gate, you know the Golden Gate Theater on Market Street?
Oh, yeah.
The building behind the Golden Gate Theater where the producers used to bring their traveling companies, that building is now a co-working center for startups. So Silicon Valley is gentrifying the Tenderloin literally from the inside out. It's so subversive. You can't even see it from the street.
It's a huge ongoing issue. I do want to make sure we talk about BART as well. I mean, here it was such a big local issue. Not one, but 2 strikes, and stranded thousands and thousands of commuters.
Yeah, absolutely. This brought to the forefront labor, and you saw the polls after this. I mean, the public polls on support for labor has dropped precipitously in the wake of that strike. Now, labor has got to make that up. The fact is, it is a very big lift to pass any kind of legislation that bans transit strikes in the labor-friendly Bay Area. But boy, that one hit people where they lived. And now you're seeing BART directors saying this is happening every 4 years. We've got to do something to stop it.
Well, in fact, BART's new president of the board, he wants to have an advisory measure on the ballot next year banning transit strikes, but it would be purely advisory. He really, I mean, there's really no authority there.
He's already very much under attack by labor. They will come out in force against that kind of an issue. The question is, will you see any Democratic legislators come forward, have the guts to come forward? Paul says no, and I agree.
That's where they get all their money, man. I mean, there's not much of an upside for them. I mean, so the public's going to be mad at them, but again, there's not much for the public to do to change the situation. I mean, you could put a statewide ballot measure, and labor would spend $100 million to block it. So who's going to put up 100 on the other side?
Although I think the anger that came out in the Bay Area when the BART strike happened compounded with the deaths of 2 BART workers on the tracks in October. It happened when a manager was training to conduct one of the trains in the event of a prolonged strike. So I think, you know, labor, formidable, no question. But the public, you know, the hundreds of thousands of people who ride BART every day, I think if you put it to a vote to them today, there would be some support for actually saying, you are an essential employee just like police or fire. We need you to fight this out, work this out somehow.
And on a lighter note, the Bay Bridge. It opened on time, despite all of the troubles and all of the false symbols.
Some kind of on time.
This is actually really important. This was a great year for public works projects across the Bay Area. We opened the Devil's Slide Tunnel, which was a $500 million project. We opened the 4th bore of the Caldecott, which was a $500 million project. We opened the New Bay Bridge. We're in the middle of a $4 billion upgrade of Hetch Hetchy. There's a lot of stuff getting built right now in the Bay Area.
Okay, so that was our discussion part. But, you know, there's a fine tradition here at KQED where the panelists have to give their predictions for 2014. So, Joshua, you're first up.
Haves and have-nots. I think the economic gap, as Carla said, between the moneyed Silicon Valley types and everybody else is going to crack open in 2014. The attacks on the Google shuttle buses for employees recently is just proof that there's all this simmering anger. I think some people are still looking at the America's Cup and wondering if that is more proof that San Francisco is just becoming a playground for billionaires, that we're becoming Times Square-fied, where people just can't afford to be here and they're going to get squished further and further out to the margins. As Paul said, I think the political question of what we do is still thorny, but haves and have-nots is going to be the big fight.
Okay, Paul, your prediction.
Jerry Brown wins re-election by 21 points, which will be the largest margin since 1986 when George Deukmejian beat Tom Bradley by 23.
All right, you are a bold man with the actual points and everything.
All right. Play a spread now.
See you next year.
Carla.
And I'm going to go local. You know, in Oakland, Mayor Jean Quan has approval ratings in the tank, but she's got 2 things going for her: power of incumbency and ranked choice voting. I think she'll win re-election, but the people start talking about the next potential Ann Gust as a possible candidate in the future.
Oh, really?
That's what I think.
That would be a very interesting election. And finally for me, boy, you guys are all heavy-duty people. It's just something light for me. I'm a Cal grad. I predict next year in the big game, Cal will not lose by a 50-point margin ever again.
49?
49?
I'm
an optimist for 2014. What can I they say.
Go Cal, go Cal.
Do you have a Stanford Rose Bowl prediction?
No, that's for you, because you're a man of points, apparently.
Stanford, all the way.
All right, you guys, thanks so much. Well, we do have some other stories of the year, and Silicon Valley Debug is a hard-to-define group. The San Jose-based organization calls itself a media, community organizing, entrepreneurial collective. It brings together advocates, organizers, and journalists who cover issues like criminal justice, housing, and immigration reform, to name a few. Next, Scott Shafer hears from Debug founder Raj Jayadev for an alternative perspective on some stories from the year. But first, a sample of their work about the growing number of homeless in San Jose.
Being out here has humbled so many people in so many different ways. I mean, I grew up upper middle class. My dad's a pastor. I graduated with a 4.0. I mean, what am I doing out here with bad life choices? They don't want us to be here, but yet tell us, where do we go when we have nowhere to go? It's bad enough we're society's rejects, and they're already looking down on us, and so that's a lot of pressure as it is. And then being homeless and trying to survive, not live, but survive.
And Raj Jayadev, welcome.
Thank you.
How is that clip an example of what you guys do?
Well, it's emblematic not only of what we do, but I think where San Jose and Silicon Valley is, which is our type of media, which is really relationship-based. In some ways, we have embedded reporters because our reporters are community members. We're able to access areas that traditional media can't. So it allows us to get these stories that are intimate stories of what does it mean to be homeless in one of the richest cities to live in the country. And then you see the work product, which is videos like that.
And what is the goal? Are you trying to change people's minds? Are you trying to influence policymakers? What?
Our goal is a humble one and maybe an audacious one at the same time. We want a participatory and inclusive Silicon Valley, and that for us means getting more people at the table in order to have a richer discussion of what our collective future should be.
And what do you see it being? What do you want it to be?
Well, I think we're at a sort of time of reckoning for Silicon Valley. As the last panelist really pointed out, this is a very stark moment of haves and have-nots, not only for a current static time, but for the future of the next generation. And so we really think 2014 is going to be a year that the stories are going to be set in terms of whether we're going to get out of a current economic model, which is leaving a lot of people behind.
As folks were talking about in that last panel, in San Francisco, we've got this tension building between tech workers and others who feel they're being priced out of San Francisco and even the Bay Area by folks coming in who aren't necessarily invested in their community here. How do you see that struggle in San Francisco, and how is it different from what you see playing out in San Jose, if at all?
I think it absolutely is playing out in San Jose, and here's what we know. A fractured, disconnected community is a dangerous one. It's a problematic one, and it's one that has to be addressed head on, or it's not going to change. And so in San Jose, where we're seeing in the daily paper that there's this accumulation of wealth by some, while some people can't get jobs, some people are being evicted, some people have no sense that there is a possibility of tomorrow, causes a lot of tension, and that kind of tension is going to spill over at some point. And it's a political issue as much as it is a moral one.
And so where does it lead? Are you trying to advocate, get different policies enacted? I mean, what takes San Francisco or San Jose, a big city, what can elected officials do that would change that?
Well, absolutely. I think there's two steps. One is community that is impacted by these issues need to generate the political force to get the elected officials to generate the political will to challenge some of these questions. And so for us, in a practical way, we think that there is a level of corporate responsibility from the tech sector to be stakeholders. If you're going to live here, if you can work here, if you can generate wealth out of existing in Silicon Valley, that comes with a responsibility and duty to make sure that we have a public infrastructure that allows our schools to continue, our police to be paid, that our public infrastructure is set.
One of the things there are many things that intersect in San Jose. You've got immigration, for example, a lot of immigrants living in the South Bay, and you've got on the one hand the H-1B visa holders who work at some very highly paid jobs in Silicon Valley. Then you've got immigrants who have come to the Valley and throughout the Bay Area to work the service sector jobs. Some of them, in fact, work in these high-tech companies. How do you see those two groups of immigrants kind of converging, and what's the dynamic, and how do you report on that?
I think it's an interesting question. In a lot of ways, there's a commonality and experience that I think these two groups don't acknowledge. That they've come from a difficult place, and they came to Silicon Valley because it was the promise of opportunity. And whether you're a tech worker or whether you're cleaning the companies at night, it's still that same possibility of a tomorrow that you're doing for yourself and your kids. And so being able to share the stories of both sides is where they could see really a reflection of each other. And if there's a way out of this difficulty, it's through that common set of experiences.
One of the issues you've really grabbed onto is criminal justice, and you've become almost an adjunct of the public defender's office, it seems to me, where you have gone to bat for people accused of crimes, families of people who are incarcerated. Talk about that and what you see your role as being there with Silicon Valley Debug.
Well, this is the 50th year of Gideon versus Wainwright, which cemented the right to counsel for anyone, regardless of resources. What we've seen, though, is that it hasn't been enacted. And really, the resource that has been tapped has been those that are facing charges and their families and loved ones. And public defender offices are strapped. Their caseloads are out of hand, and they don't have enough resources. But families can be extensions of legal defense teams to change the equation parameters of their work, to allow the right to counsel to be realized, not just something that is aspirational.
Your critics say, you know, you do great work, but you don't differentiate between gang members and people who have gotten caught up in, say, you know, a first-time nonviolent drug offense. What do you say to that criticism?
Well, what we say is that we're espousing a very basic American principle, which is everyone has a right to a defense and everyone has a right to counsel, despite what is in your bank account. And that is really something that is not highly politicized, is fundamental to the judicial system. All we're trying to do is make sure that the system is operating by the principles that it espoused us and something that we believe in too.
But to those who say you're naive in that you don't, you know, you maybe see those two kinds of crimes, like say a very violent crime versus one that's nonviolent. I mean, how do you decide which causes to champion?
We cause the people. We champion the people, not the causes. And so what we say is, if you have a charge, you're a community member. You're not just a police file or what you're charged with. If we could tell the fuller story, if we could include who is it that is beholden to you, who is it that your relatives are, we can make a more sensible and rational criminal justice system. We're not making a judgment on innocent or guilt.
And then just quickly looking ahead to 2014, is there an issue emerging that you see?
Absolutely. Immigration, we see, is on the forefront, not just on a national level, but local. And I think Governor Brown's move towards the Trust Act, local counties are realizing that immigration is not something that Obama simply has to decide on, but our local legislators need to make a stand on.
All right. Raj Jayadev, thank you so much for coming in.
Appreciate it, Scott. Thank you.
And that is all for tonight. Thanks to our guests for joining us tonight, Paul Rogers, Carla Marinucci, and Joshua Johnson. Happy holidays to you all. And there's more coverage of 2013 and the latest news at KQEDnews.org. I'm Thuy Vu. We wish you a joyful holiday season and a happy new year. Good night.